All right, welcome to another episode of No Investment Advice. This is episode number 11. We've got my man Trung Phan here, repping Canada Day, and we got Jack Butcher in the place as well. So, Trung, let's go straight to you, man. You've been... first of all, if you see the video right now, it's dark on my side, or you see it's thunder and lightning during this conversation, and I'm like getting shook. It's because we're recording at a different time than normal, and it was because Trung forgot it was Canada Day. So, what was going on here, man? You've been going all day getting crazy.
There's a couple threads I want to pull on here. So today's Canada Day. It's July 1st, it's like a huge running joke, right? July 4th is obviously American Independence Day, but Canada, we obviously have this like little brother syndrome. So we try to front run US holidays. So Canada Day is on July 1st, 3 days before Independence Day. And then our Thanksgiving is 6 weeks before American Thanksgiving.
I have a real head start.
Yeah. And listen, I'm going to give a mini history lesson. It'll be 30 seconds because everybody's going to be like, what the hell is Canada Day? Nobody's going to understand what Canada is. So on July 1st, 1867, the British colonies of Canada, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick joined into a dominion. And this started the process that took over 100 years where we became fully our own country. We're still part of the Commonwealth, but that's how it kicked off. Canada has the most boring history ever. It's not the most boring.
Jack just smirked there. I saw that Jack English smirk coming through.
You know what we should do?
This is a Commonwealth podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, the Commonwealth. We should laugh about how you guys basically, we've just been riding the teat of the British for hundreds of years. Well, and then in 1982, you guys just like let us, like pushed us away on the raft. It's like, you know what I mean? You're just like, you're ready to be on your own.
I want to call out that, dude, your level of history knowledge is ridiculous. Like, you just like, oh, in 1982, this happened. It's
incredible.
Like,
bro, I can drop something.
Major. But, also, I must call out, by the way, I was also not British back then. I mean, I'm British, but I was like Indian back then when you guys were dealing with British too. So, back then we were Indian. So,
yeah.
Let's not start it again. But so okay. Canada Days, what you were out with your kids or what?
Yeah,
today,
I went to the zoo with my family. The zoo, I don't really have much to say other than during COVID, obviously they weren't really open, so they took it to the next level. They upgraded the S out of it. So I'm still Fiat fan, still not allowed to swear here. If I swear, it goes in a fine jar, and then I have to buy American dollars or some type of fiat with it. So, so no swearing.
By the way, we have to give a shout out to the person who made fiatfan.com.
Oh yeah,
that was incredible.
So that was one of the. You're onto something when people start buying domain names, right? So like full respect to. Sorry, I didn't get the name here. Do you see the name?
Nicholas.
Yeah, Nicholas. Oh, thank you, Nicholas, man. I appreciate that. That's a good joke. Fiat fan is dead. I might ask you for that URL in the future. We can do something together.
I'm just going to quickly share it for people who aren't able to get to the screen right now.
Amazing. I can tell you right now that URL probably costed 99 cents. That is not a high demand URL. The last thing I want to say, though, is even though Manish told me I talked too much last week, is so I just want to talk about energy levels, right? It just throws everything off. So it's just my fault. I forgot that I was going to the zoo. I'm such a dad. I was going to the zoo today, so we didn't record at our usual time, which is 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. But you guys are fine. Just like different parts of the day, just totally different energy levels, right? I have no idea how I'm so wired right now. Like I'm 8 hours away from my last drink of caffeine, and I'm just like, I don't know.
Jack's on the coffee right now, 6:30 p.m.
I'm on the decaf drop the Cometa plug. I'm on the ship now.
Are you guys both on Cometa?
I've been on it too, to be honest. Yeah, and I didn't get it sent for free. So heads up, if Cometa are listening or whatever they call it, I need that little side deal.
You're not on East. You're
Central.
Central. Yeah.
Well, this is decaf.
Okay.
Jack doesn't drink coffee after 12 o'clock. He's a pro.
Why do people drink decaf? I don't get it. I never understood that.
It's just nice, isn't it?
Just for the taste.
Just for the taste? Yeah.
It's like non-alcoholic beer.
Little square of chocolate and a decaf, mate.
No, not even a little bit. I've never had a decaf in my life. Although apparently if you're an asshole at Starbucks, they'll give you decaf. So maybe I have had it.
You probably have had it, yeah.
All right, so boys, let's get this going. So we got a couple. Let's let people know what we're going to talk about today. So Richard Branson's going to space. This is fresh off the press. We're going to talk about it in a second. We're going to talk about memes, nostalgia, and some old school, some of our favorite ads of all time. And Jack's got a thesis on that, as he always does. Beautiful. And then we're going to do a little bit of crypto. Jay-Z bought CryptoPunk. Sam Altman's Worldcoin, which is kind of mental. We've also got Jack Mallers, who's allowing people to buy Bitcoin with zero fees. Bitcoin tab. We'll quickly touch on all that. Coinbase as well. And then we got some fun fact fan coming today. The Sriracha thread, which was front page of Hacker News. I just saw that like 20 minutes ago.
Number one. I didn't even know that was on my bucket list, but I checked it off anyways.
That's amazing. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the history of Sriracha. Your dad, who's watching. Hello, Mr. Fan. He's been asking for more.
Dr. Fan, dude. He went to two medical schools. So don't you dare take away the doctor.
Dr. Squared. He wanted more Vietnamese content. So we got some Sriracha stuff. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But there's plenty for us to talk about. And then obviously the Facebook antitrust stuff. We'll get a little lowdown on that as well. But yeah, look, let's start off with Richard Branson going to space, because this is fresh as we've been recording.
It's literally less than an hour old. But I mean, let's be honest. The reason why you guys want to shoehorn it in is because you're both British. And you're both English, and what's going on? Tell them what's really happening. Tell listeners what's really happening.
So, I mean, what's happening is it's coming home is what's happening.
Okay,
what that means.
Explain what's going on for people that don't watch football, whatever this sport's called.
Yeah. So this is football, AK, where there's a European Championships going on right now. And we're recording before the big quarterfinal on the weekend. So by the time this comes out, we'll actually know if England progressed. But long story short, England just beat Germany for the first time in
How good did that feel? I want you guys to say how, because Germany is a fucking.
Let's get a close up on Jack.
I just got fined. Germany is a powerhouse.
Incredible side.
They're other than Brazil, they're got to be the best football nation in the world.
They're always solid. That's the thing. They're never like flashy, high flair, but they're always just like German companies. Like you just gonna churn them out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, Jack. Actually, what were you doing that day, Jack? You watched it in the local boozer, right?
Explain to people how good it feels. Though I don't think a lot of Westerners will understand how good this feels. I mean, not Westerners, North Americans.
It's outrageous, man. Like you grow up watching England play football, and there is this like, I don't know if other countries have such an inflated expectation relative to their history as a sports team, but England has always had this distorted belief, I think, that the England football team is the best in the world.
You've only had one World Cup, right?
Correct. 1966.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Long time ago, but you go to the UK, any national competition, you would think, there was a legitimate like coin toss chance of them winning every time. And obviously that hasn't been the case.
And we're doing it again right now because it's only the quarterfinals.
Hold on, we need to talk about this. So like, as a Canadian, what you're describing is so true, because like I'm a very third-party observer of football. Every 4 years, I get hyped about the World Cup, and I'll obviously bandwagon like Brazil. Like I freaking love Brazil. But you're right. Every World Cup I'll remember from '98. That's when Brazil lost to France. I remember going into every World Cup. It's like, this is England's year. This is England's year, right? Michael Owen, David Beckham. It always had these superstar players, and just not. Michael Owen had that goal though, right? Was it 2002 or '98? Like a really famous
98
goal. Yeah.
Against the Argentina one, right? The way he took on the whole. But yeah, so basically what's happening is, just to bring it back, England beat Germany. Jack was getting on it that day, I'm sure, having a good time with his kid in one arm and a pint in the other, I'm sure. I was watching at home, so I didn't actually get to enjoy it properly with like English people. But this weekend, I will definitely go out to watch the game. But yeah, the reason it's worth mentioning is just like, it's like a weird thing, man. It's like this nostalgia comes back. Like I literally the next morning I was playing all the England songs, like all of the like on my Spotify playlist, and they're the most ridiculous songs. What's the big one, Jack? I mean, it's Vindaloo, which is Three Lines is the classic one, right? And me and Jack were texting about this because we're basically saying it's ridiculous that every year or every like big tournament, everyone starts singing these songs. And it makes no sense. Like we haven't won anything since 1966.
when you say bringing it home, that literally bringing it home makes no sense. It doesn't belong to the English.
Well, because football was invented apparently in the UK. Okay. That's why, yeah, apparently.
Okay, so that's the illusion, not like bringing it home. Like we every year we should be having this.
Defending champions. Yeah, no.
Yeah, the opposite of that.
Okay, so that's the real reason you guys want to talk about Richard Branson. So all we'll mention is that Richard Branson is, I just tweeted about it. It's getting some traction. It's like, it's the greatest hold my beer move ever. It's like Bezos is like, I'm going to space on July 20th. And Richard Branson is like, hold my effing beer. I'm going on July 11th, brother. And so he's 9 days ahead, but there's somebody replied with a really morbid reply, like not a mean one, but he just goes, any engineer or someone that's in the space industry will know that the safety record of Virgin Galactic does not inspire confidence. So
I sold my shares, mate. I sold my shares this week. They went up 40%, and I had to cash out to break even finally.
Oh my goodness, dude.
But, my question was going to be, what constitutes space? Because Virgin Galactic's never put anything in the air. I thought they had.
No, they're like talking. I don't know the full thing here. Let me pull it up. But I think it's to your point. It's like there's these lines that you hit, right? When you pass certain parts of the atmosphere, or you go into the orbit. And yeah, I think, I don't know what they're trying to pull off here. But I mean, it's like Elon joked about it too, right? When Blue Origin had his first like self-landing rocket, he's like, well, technically you guys didn't go into space, right? So apparently amongst billionaires, it's an inside joke, like what real space is. So who knows,
like, man? Legit key man risk, isn't it? Putting your CEO in I don't even know if he's a CEO, but it seems pretty ludicrous for Jeff Bezos, especially. Like, why?
It's just so. I mean, that the All In guys had a great thesis. They'd spent like whole episode on it. They're like, he's going to come back and become CEO of Blue Origin. Like, this is all going to be part of it.
Right.
But they also said that it was just so ridiculous. Well, they split, but they're just like, this is just not worth it.
Crazy.
All right, so boys, let's talk about that was Richard Branson. I mean, there's not much more to say.
Also British cat. Oh, what you're trying to say is you're about to have a big month. You're about to have a big month.
I mean, he's representing. I mean, he's been doing it since what, like 90s or whatever, like jumping out of planes and hot air balloons and all that sort of stuff. Actually, the first book I ever pretty much read on my own accord was his autobiography. It was what inspired my entrepreneurial, whatever you want to call it. And man, I mean, he's like, there aren't many people that have kept at the top of the game like him. You know what I mean? In his own way.
And the mental like variation in fields and industries that he's
it's incredible. Well, I mean, Jack, let me throw this in your ball, your court. You'll appreciate this as a student of attention. How good of a practitioner is Richard Branson?
Oh, yeah, he's good, man. He gets it, man. He's been playing the game a lot longer than anybody even knew there was a game.
Yeah, he gets it. That's why he'll put everything under the name Virgin, right? Like, he immediately understands.
Smart as hell. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. All right, so talking of attention, let's talk about fraction of culture. Jack, you talked to us about this in the past, and I didn't fully get it, so I wanted to get your take and explain this. I think I don't know if you were going to share your screen.
Yeah, I can. But let me tee it up first, and then I'll do the screen share. But
really walk through it.
The football is a good example, I think. So like those songs that feels to me, maybe this is biased because I grew up in the UK, but you have these like assets that everybody gets or understands, and they break down like a bunch of different cultural barriers and location barriers. Not like everybody knows the words to Three Lions, for example. And then Bilal, I think we were having this conversation a couple months ago. In the UK, whenever I go back there, the ads on TV, everybody knows the words to the ads. So like a lot of like so much attention is concentrated on like 4 or 5 channels in the UK. So, you know, in the States and probably Canada, you've had 300 cable channels for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But in the UK, when Bilal and I were growing up, there's like, maybe you have a few digital channels, but there's like 5 channels. And
that's Channel U.
Yeah, Channel U.
But yeah, no, there were 5 terrestrial shows, right?
What are BBC? Like what were
BBC
the main
1 and 2, ITV, Channel 4, and then eventually Channel 5 came later.
Yeah, so but there's weirdly one of the best examples is an American ad. Do you remember the Budweiser ad where they're all so that thing became a meme and like split out of the TV, right? And like people would, you walk up to people you didn't know and say that, and like, walk up to them in a gas station and they're singing it.
Everyone got it.
Everyone gets it straight away. And then I guess the thing that I've been thinking about a lot is now everybody sort of curates their own media diet on the phone versus like a family sitting in front of a TV. And I realized this a couple of years ago. Me and Celia have built like completely different news feeds, right? So you're sitting there all day consuming like completely different stuff.
I hope so, because your feed is ridiculous.
Man, dude, if Celia was listening to Michael Saylor all day, like your kid would have a problem, man.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, let me share my screen here. So I got a little illustration to represent this.
Okay.
So like when you're growing up, it's like four of you, like a family of four sitting in front of a TV, you all consume the same stuff, right? They have a TV program, then you have a set of ads. Everybody's like consuming the same stuff. But now that's basically fractured into quarters, and every person has built their own media feed, and your physical proximity doesn't really necessarily mean that you consume the same media as a person you're sitting next to. But just like a profound difference in like what are the cultural implications of that. Balaji talks a lot about this. Is like your next door neighbors probably have a completely different mental model of the world than you do. Yeah. Because they built different feeds. But if you rewind 15 years, your next door neighbor in the UK, you'd walk out in the morning and be like, oh, did you watch Thingy last night? It was good, wasn't it? Or do you watch the news? That's the story.
You go into school and the office and you'd talk about Big Brother or whatever was on TV at the time.
And I think it's still going on a little bit in the UK, right, Bilal?
Yeah, I mean, I see my feed right now because Love Island just started, and I just see a bunch of people tweeting nonsense. But yeah, I will say, I mean, you left like 10 years ago, was it? Mm-hmm. And I've been gone for 8 almost years as well. So I'm wondering how much has changed there. Like, I don't really have a full understanding apart from speaking to my parents, but they're a certain generation. So,
right.
But I think that was really succinctly put. Like I think of it from my background in advertising as well. Like the way you can target obviously ads to two people sitting next to each other is completely different. Yeah. And previously you'd be in the living room and you're watching the same TV channel and you're going to see the same Huggies nappy ad or whatever, or a car ad. And now I'm on the feed and I'm getting like, the Cometeer coffee retargeting ad, and then someone sitting next to me is getting like whatever else. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting point for sure.
Oh, the same news story could be presented in two different ways too, right? Like I'm on Zero Hedge and Celia's reading CNN or something. We're getting a different takeaway.
No,
100%.
You actually know who talks about this a lot is Eric Weinstein. He talks about he works at Teal Capital as managing director. He's also like a PhD in physics. Yeah, and like big podcaster. He might have been red pilled, but no, he talks about the truth making mechanisms in society, right? So to Jack's point, 50, 60 years ago, there were 3 networks in America: CBS, ABC, NBC, right? And that's why you had a guy like Walter Cronkite, a single anchor would be accepted as a truth-making mechanism for our entire country, right? That's why when actually one of the reasons it was believed a contributing reason why the American populace turned on the Vietnam War was when Walter Cronkite came back from Vietnam. He was like, I don't think we can win this war. And we're talking a guy that has hundreds of millions of people. And to Jack's point, everyone's watching him, right? We know why we know everyone's watching him. Your neighbor's watching him. This is why the Super Bowl still pulls in so much advertising dollars. It's because even as culture's getting fractured, these are these fewer and fewer of these moments where everybody will be, right? So you can make one of these WhatsApp ads at the Super Bowl, or a guy like The Weeknd The Weeknd paid to actually perform. Yeah, he got X amount, but he put an extra 10 million into the performance because he knew exactly to Jack's point. It's like there's so few, and it goes back to everything we talked about. It's the scarcity, right? It's like scarcity of events like this where hundreds of millions of people will be watching. So this actually, as you're talking, it got me thinking about Elon's Twitter feed, because I've talked about Elon so much on this podcast. But if you actually think about, okay, let's say that let's say that 300 million people are on Twitter, right? And realistically, there are probably tens of millions of different viewpoints. So we'll assume that a lot of people gather into certain viewpoints, right? Like a lot of the Bitcoiners and crypto people will gather into one sliver, so we can group them all together. But let's just say there's millions of difference of these type of exactly like that picture you put up of these realities that people have. But actually, the amazing thing about Elon is everybody gathers to him, right? As soon as he tweets, he's sucking all the energy and all the oxygen towards him, no matter what your view of the world is. If you hate him, you're going to go there and quote tweet, I hate him. If you love him, you're going to be in his replies. If you're running scams, you're going to be in his replies, right? If you're just trying to grow your personal Twitter, you're going to be in his replies. Everyone is gathering to Elon's. I would love somebody to flesh this idea out, but like so if Twitter is a platform where people are building their own realities and Elon is the place where everyone gathers every time he tweets on that platform, like what does that say about him, right?
Yeah, and he tweeted recently, he who controls the memes controls the universe, right? So he gets that he's manipulating at scale.
So it's just so much too. It's like he's on the platform where people, like the seedlings of things start. So like, even though there's a saying like Twitter is not the real world, right? There's a great example of this actually. This is also from the All In podcast. Andrew Yang, huge Twitter personality.
Yeah.
2 million Twitter followers all over Twitter. The guy that actually won the mayorship, no Twitter presence. So the All In guys were just making the point. It's like, you know what? Like, honestly, like Twitter is just not, in a lot of ways it can be, but there's just so many.
Wow.
That's a great example, right? It's like, man, if you're on Twitter, you're like, Yang's winning. How can this guy not win, right?
But also, it's because of the echo chambers too, right? Because, I mean, I think he objectively was more popular on Twitter or like has more reach. Totally. But their point on the All In podcast was, well, we're all in our own little bubbles. We just think that the world revolves around this, whereas real people are going and voting differently, as we saw 4 years ago.
But Twitter can clearly seed even before, right? If you go through the stacks of where influence happens, like 4chan, 8chan, Reddit, Imgur, and then Twitter, or Imgur's before Reddit. And then it goes up to Twitter. And then that's how culture gets seeded. You're right. I mean, obviously, Trump is just he's a total, a far, extreme example of Twitter actually reflecting reality. But I guess at that level, when you're at the 100 million level, then that can be reality, right?
You said 300 million. Is that right, Trump?
Let me see. Daily active users, Twitter.
But that puts it into context. Like even an Elon is like 50 million. That's like a significant percentage of the entire user base of the platform.
Yeah,
mental to think about it like that.
Well, it's shocking to me. It's not 100. It is. So they're saying 200 to 300 mil. It looks like.
I will say one thing to add though is the way we're describing it. I think we all center around in this segment of like society, right? Like obviously Elon Musk is reach on hundreds of millions of people through Twitter directly, plus all the press mentions, etc. But for another category or another world, like something very different, Elon Musk is not influencing fashion, right? Like if you think of like the way people look, like Kim Kardashian, if you look at Instagram, and their family,
100 million followers,
exactly, and how they're people literally did their faces up, and the way that they dress and like the curve of the shape of people's bodies has changed over like the last 20 years. What is like cool or whatever word you want to use, or attractive or whatever, because of like the influence of people like Kim Kardashian family, right? But like it's not to get too kind of like analytical about this, but in like business world, you learn about like the curve, right? Like the adoption curve, and there's like early adopters, innovators or whatever. Yep. And in this world, like the stuff we're interested in, a lot of it starts with the tech people, right? Like Elon Musk is included in that, but it's also like if you think of like social platforms like Clubhouse, a year and a half ago was only being used by like basically geeks and their VCs and friends, and it was like a few thousand people. And then fast forward, forget that it might be dying now or whatever, but like fast forward a year, that really got out to like more cultural people. Like Joe Budden is in there hosting rooms with like tens of thousands of people, and you've got like rappers coming on there and celebrities and stuff like that. So it's just like it depends on which part of the kind of ecosystem you're looking at. But I think like legitimately Elon has a disproportionate amount. The other one I think of is like someone like Joe Rogan before he went on to Spotify, because that was another segment of people that were listening for 2-3 hours to him several days a week. Exactly. And it was people learning about these alternative narratives, whether that's good or bad. And they were literally learning about this stuff and then being introduced to other different people that they go down their rabbit holes. Like Eric Weinstein is a great example of that. And the other 5 or 6 people that basically launched podcasts from appearing on Joe Rogan.
The next episode, 2 things I'll follow up on is I want to do exactly what you said. I want to see like the top 10 guys he's launched. He launched like Weinstein, Jordan Peterson, Lex Friedman, a bunch of other people. We could do that. And actually a former CIA analyst named Martin Gurry wrote a book called The Revolt of the Public. I'm going to dig into that because it actually goes into exactly what Jack started this with. It's like, what is the end game of when you fracture culture? Like what happens, right? Like where does that lead? I mean, we see a lot of it now, right? It happened with Brexit, it happened with Trump. It's like, there is this truth-making mechanism that existed for decades, which was like the New York Times, the central television stations. And actually now it's probably the big tech, right? They are the truth-making mechanism in a lot of ways. They're deciding. But he goes through and basically draws a line of what he sees will happen. The book came out in like 2011 or 12, basically predicted Trump and Brexit. So I will do a little bit of research for the next one. So we can
it just shows like, just to tie a bow in that last thought, like that's why Spotify were willing to pay $100-200 million for someone like Joe Rogan, because they understand the impact someone like him was having, where most people on the street would be like, what are you talking about? Who the hell's the guy from Fear Factor or whatever it was, right? And they had no understanding that people were literally listening to him for hours, like learning about all sorts of stuff and going down rabbit holes. So anyway, definitely interesting. So yeah, let's do that next time. Jack, anything else on your side before we move on that thought around Budweiser and the fracturing of culture stuff?
I was just going to say, follow up to your last point about people investing in, or companies investing in media personalities and like power laws and all the stuff we talked about. Call a daddy, is that a good deal or a bad deal? I think something I've started to, I don't know if I talked about this on the last episode, but the predictability of media as an asset. So like culture as something that is more robust than like a financial asset. Like a story about a company can tank a stock, right? But if you think about a song or a podcast or a person, there's a certain number of people that just believe in them that are going to keep listening to them. And Spotify is obviously looking at a set of numbers where like, if this continues the way it's going, or even if it peels off or it plateaus, we're still going to make our money back on this thing. Because I think there's it's very hard to quantify the idea that there is X number of people that just are going to tune in and listen to what this person has to say, regardless of what happens. Good, bad, controversy, no controversy, different than here's a company that's just been found out that they don't have a product and they're wheeling a truck down a hill. Like, what was that one called? Nikola. Yeah. So I think it's a pretty fascinating thing. And that's, again, to go into the crypto stuff, I think this might tee us perfectly into the next topic. It's lowering the barrier to entry to bet on things that aren't traditionally considered assets, but have a way more
interesting,
predictable value.
It's if you can, I see exactly what you're saying. It's like if you can, if you identify something that can create narratives and worlds, then that people and audiences are attracted to, right? Like just take a Call Her Daddy, for example. She clearly is worth 60 mil to Spotify. They're like, there's a subset of humanity that is giving her attention, and we will pay for that attention, like specifically through her as a mediating tool.
Well, I was going to add, there's like numbers. There's like, are you getting enough numbers that people like your stuff? And then there's like I hate to use this phrase, but like the depth for like, is this a movement? Is this like, if you created language that people are using, right? Like Call Her Daddy, again, I don't listen to it, but I know enough about where people refer to themselves as part of that group, or they have slang, they have in jokes. Like there's a reason us guys make jokes about Fiat Fan, one, because it's funny, but it's also, we understand that's part of like
it leaped into reality, dude. I mean, that's the greatest point, right? Somebody bought a URL. I'm sorry, man. I'll Venmo you the money back. But no, it's just like these small things, right? No, totally. That oh man, that's super interesting.
Well, it comes back to like, to tie it into the next section, Jay-Z, right? Like Jay-Z, like we were talking about tech, early adopters, Kardashians. To me, the biggest one in many ways for culture, however you broadly define that, like music, you know, lifestyle, you know, what else is there? Like fashion, like the impact of hip hop culture, like across the world. Like there's dudes breakdancing in Japan, right? Like that. If you were to talk about influence over the last like 30, 40 years on culture, like someone like Jay-Z is right up there in business, music, and everything he's doing. So, like we spoke about this a few days ago, he bought a CryptoPunk and changed his profile picture. So this is a huge kind of turning point. Like when we were looking at this, we were happy for Jack because Jack owns one of those. And for us in general, validating.
Jack, did it go up? Did it go up?
It's moving. Like there's a lot more activity happening over there, but it's a long road. It's going to be a CryptoPunk summer, boys. Mark my words.
But yeah, so Jack, tell us about like what you think of that, because like you're someone who thought through investing in something like this. One, because you probably wanted one anyway, but also probably for like as an investment, right? Like you have to convince wifey that it's not a ridiculous investment for your family. So like how did you think about that, and how does it relate to someone like Jay-Z getting one?
So there's a couple of things going on with Jay-Z. One, specifically because of the Jack Dorsey and Tidal thing. So,
right.
But that aside for a second, I think the moves that Jay-Z has made over the past X number of years, Tidal is a perfect example of like a technology that came too early, right? Or an idea that came too early. And I think crypto culture embodies a lot of what he was trying to achieve with Tidal, which is essentially, we want to put ownership in the hands of the artists. We want there to be way less of a cut from a middleman. Like these labels are taking advantage of, you know, young kids that have got this cultural momentum. And even back then, I don't know what year Tidal came out, but distribution didn't exist in the same way it does today, right? There are certain gatekeepers in the way of you getting a number one song, and maybe there still are, but that reality is changing. And I think one of the reasons I like second guessed or thought twice about it is like, I know Tidal and Dorsey are like, there's something going on there, right? Jay-Z, Tidal, Jack Dorsey.
Because Tidal got bought by Square, was it?
Yeah, by Square. Yeah. And Dorsey's talked about combining Twitter and Square maybe in the future. Like he knows that Twitter is
he's playing some 4D chess right now.
Listen, our boy Packy writes about it, man. We know how much Dorsey loves crypto, right? He's seeing the playing field. He's seeing all the pieces out there, right? He sees that Twitter is a culture component, Square is the monetization component, and then if he can that's why he put Jay-Z on the board of Square, right? And so they bought Tidal. Something's going on, you're right. I mean, there's something happening, man.
But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I saw a tweet a couple of days ago. I think Jack Dorsey thinks Ethereum is a shitcoin. Am I right?
Are you serious?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. So there's some
there is no second coin. Is he one of those?
There. Exactly. There is no second. There is no second best.
Dude, it looks like he's been drinking the Kool-Aid.
Right, but Jay-Z like bought that 2 months ago, and from I don't know whether this is a legitimate source or not. It's like it sounds like he's got his own, like he's figuring it out. He's like someone gifted him Hove.eth, SeanCarter.eth, verified on OpenSea. And like the crazy thing about an Ethereum wallet is people can just send stuff to it when they have your wallet. So there's like obviously a lot of interesting things happen with that. As soon as you know Jay-Z's Ethereum address, people just sling and spam into that wallet.
Because they then take a screenshot and say, hey, Jay-Z is holding this shit. It's basically what happened to Vitalik. He got like Shiba coin or whatever. Yeah. Like it ended up being $1 billion worth just sitting in an account that he ended up donating most of it to India or whatever, COVID relief, and then burnt the rest. But yeah, so that's probably going to start happening to him as well.
Yeah, and that like I think that's just all the front end stuff is going to fix that, right? Like OpenSea, you can only show the stuff that you want to show, and it would technically be possible for someone to look at what you're holding, but all of these platforms that are built for showcasing art and stuff are
I'll tell you something interesting is Andreesen's obviously super heavy in the creator space. I think they've done 12 deals this year for $500 million. So they invested Stir, Substack, Clubhouse. They actually made one of their partners a general partner. His name's Chris Lyons. Chris Lyons was a former manager at SoSoDef and basically is known as just a total networker, right? He's African-American and he ran the culture fund, and Andreesen understands, right? Ben Horst always writes about hip hop lyrics, and they understand where culture comes from. And to elevate him as a general partner and the same time that just going all nuts on the creator economy, there's clearly this recognition that so much of Black culture, there was a tweet that Jack Dorsey, between Twitter and Square, right? Black culture is responsible for like 50% of like the market or like what's valuable on those platforms.
Right.
Even Square was kind of hacked to growth. The hip hop community was huge with it, right? They're giving cash apps away to their fandom. Rappers were doing it, and other.
And Clubhouse artists as well was kind of taken to the next level. I don't know how it's doing nowadays, but like that was, you would go on it at times and you'd be like, there was only African American people on my feed, which was fun, but it was just like kind of like being on it a few months before, where it was like Naval and a bunch of nerds like geeking out about his like tweets. It was like completely different.
I actually walked into a room. I went into a room it was like a pretty heaty room, and it was just like, and it sounded like some of the guests were actually like pimps and like escorts. And I'm like, oh yeah, and then like go in the room, it's like, listen, if you're not looking to pay, like you're not getting on stage today. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna go to another room, man. My wife can't be hearing this.
But my favorite last anecdote on Clubhouse was just people would send people money on Cash App, just like they would like the look of a person of the opposite sex, or someone maybe not opposite sex, someone they're attracted to, and they'll be like, oh, I just sent that person $50 on Cash App. And it's like, this is the funniest, like, if you think of that of culture, like, and this has nothing to do with specific culture, it's just like stuff that was happening on Clubhouse at that time. Like, that's how new social norms like arise, right? Like back in the day, you take someone out for a drink or dinner. Now it was like, hey, I'm just sending you money. Like, to me, that's weird, but maybe to someone else it's not. But
well, let me pin this thought with. I actually saw the first person pick up another person in real life in probably 3 to 4 years. I was at the mall and I saw one dude stop a girl walking dead in her steps, and you could tell, what's going on. They don't know each other, and then they swap phones. I'm like, okay, I haven't seen that one in a long time. I'm like, that means to me COVID's over, brother.
Yeah, that was the handshake equivalent of you're touching each other's phones. But Jack, last thing on anything else on Jay-Z before we move on, because I think you're in the middle of something.
I think it's very similar to what we talked about in the last episode, where there are like cultural norms in place where it's going to take a lot of shifting to get people to be like, hey, launch your new album on chain, right? Or like, you don't need to be affiliated with Universal to go out and sell X number of copies of your music. And I think the real, like, obviously the infrastructure is being built and you can technically make stuff happen, but the longer game is like getting people to understand crypto and tokenomics and all of these, like, Robinhood for investing in music is all going to happen, but it's going to take a little while. And that's why I think Cash App, Square, Twitter, Tidal, like, you could see all these layers like meshing together to produce, and they're even doing monetization with Twitter creators right now. We're in this bubble where you think of creators as like people writing how to grow your Twitter account. And it's like, it's not that at all, right? It's, Jay-Z is a creator. Kanye West is a creator. Beyonce is a creator. And those are, I think, the use cases that Twitter or whatever are going to ultimately build for, not the person with 1,200 people reading their newsletter. So it's obviously a massively bullish signal for CryptoPunks specifically, but the whole space. Yeah, I think something like that is effectively an endorsement of a new way of transacting, right? Which is exciting.
And a part of this, look, I'll say, to call myself out, part of this is confirmation bias, or whatever phrase you want to use. Like,
oh, def, man, me too.
Yeah, we all have a bit of that, obviously, like everyone does. But no, I mean, someone like Jay-Z playing around with this stuff is not going to do anything but improve or like move things forward, because he's the sort of person who's creative. He's working in different worlds, and he's not just like a tech geek who is, and I say this as someone, I say that in a loving way, right? Like, I'm not putting people down. Like, I would say I'm a geek in my own way, but like someone who's trying to see like, what are the real use cases of this stuff, which I think is still missing. How am I going to explain to Beyonce and our kids like why we're doing a minimum or a limited edition album cover as an NFT, as an example, or making this up, or why are we creating a Tidal DAO, and like the DAO has got Kanye West and like 20 other big artists who are creating like a new structure of a company through programmable ways versus like an old school LLC or a C Corp or whatever. So again, I don't know what I'm really talking about, but like you can see some of those things coming together. And even like yesterday, I think Twitter were giving out a bunch of these NFTs on Twitter, which was kind of cool. So it's just like, yeah, I can see all these worlds coming together. A quick question for you guys. Go on, Jack.
I was just going to say, I remember that too. And now I'm like, Twitter, Square, Bitcoin, Jack Dorsey, Ethereum. What's going on? What's going on, boys?
Pretty big. Yeah.
No, but the closing the gap between his like Bitcoin only and then Twitter like shilling NFTs on the Ethereum blockchain. It's kind of
that's true,
interesting contradiction. So maybe he's doing some 4D chess, like you said.
Dude, you know, Jack, I think Jack Dorsey's routine when pre-COVID, or maybe still now, is he just walks like 2 hours to his office and just thinks. I mean, this is the product of Jack Dorsey, just walking to his office and thinking for 2 hours.
Yeah,
that's where the magic happens, man.
Yeah, he said, I remember hearing that he only works on his phone as well.
Oh my God!
So the idea being that because you only can have one window open at a time.
Yeah,
I remember him saying that. So you're in the thing you're in.
That's amazing. I'm not going to give Dorsey. I know people give Dorsey slander about Twitter and all. Dude, the guy's just a total animal, man.
Oh,
There's
sure.
just no way around it.
No doubt.
Absolute boss. Yeah, all right. So I think we covered that. That was really interesting. The last question I had on it was if we have any predictions for some of the things that might happen in the future with like a Jay-Z or other artists. Like I gave one as an example, which I completely stole from the Clubhouse chat with Meek Mill and Pomp. That was like 6 months ago or something
Mill
like that.
And Pomp
was it Meek Mill, right?
Yeah.
Pomp.
Yeah.
And it was like, who's the Galaxy guy? Novogratz was in there, Mike Novogratz, and a bunch of crypto people. But it was cool because it was like, you know, old school crypto people trying to explain it. And then there was like Meek Mill. And, you know, Meek Mill's really interesting guy as well. He's been working on a bunch of cool stuff. So like he's in there asking like legit questions that sound dumb to someone who is into crypto, but is exactly the sort of questions you need to move something forward, because he's like, well, wait a minute, why would I do that? And that's what's missing a lot of the time. So yeah, curious if you guys have any ideas or thoughts around like how like that might actually look in the future.
It sounds like when we get these reader questions about what is the future of smart contracts in society,
explain the memes.
I'm gonna have to noodle on this one.
No, that's all right. I thought I'd throw it out there in case something does come out, but if not, we can just move on. No stress.
Well, I think you'll see like the like democratization of or music turning into an investable asset. That's definitely gonna be a thing. I don't know if I brought this up before. I met a lad in Miami who's building this product called Indify.
Yeah, you talked about that last week. Actually, it was one of the user questions.
Well, I see that like happening at scale potentially.
That would be cool. Yeah, imagine the people able to directly invest in that stuff. Plus, you've got all the limited edition stuff as well. So, yeah, definitely.
I will say one other thing. I want one other thing about it. Like it has like really profound and weird effects. I think this is a Naval quote. He says, technology democratizes production, but consolidates consumption. So if you're the best in the world at anything, you get to do it for anyone or for everyone. So what that means is like if music is an investable asset, the people who win absolutely massively, right? And money starts to really change the incentives. Like we like to think about this as like this utopian future where people allocate funds just because they like someone's music. But if the number stays flat, you better believe they're reallocating their funds to this song that just exploded or this artist. Exactly. So I think that's like, you can make the argument that that's a meritocracy, but it's decentralization is very good for people who are amazing at stuff and very bad for people who aren't.
Yeah. You have to deal. So the framework that's really good to use is like, what are the skill sets that are needed? I know Jack's talked about this past in a world of just like abundance, right? Like what skills are needed where everything's kind of available and the scarce asset is attention. And I mean, I think we can tie this all in with like that Martin Gurry, like the breaking up of attention, see what happens. That research I'm supposed to be doing.
Bring it back next week.
Did either of you read about Sam Altman's Worldcoin thing? The summary from what I read very briefly was Sam Altman. So he was the head of Y Combinator for a while. He had a company before that didn't seem to go that well, but he sold it and whatever. He's got this idea to do this thing called Worldcoin. All I heard was from Jason Calacanis's podcast, This Week in Startups. And I was actually quite surprised. Like I like Jason overall. I think he's, like sees a lot of stuff, but his whole viewpoint on like crypto seems super biased by this point, and maybe I'm as biased, and that's why I see it that way. But like to me, some of the stuff he was saying was essentially like Sam Altman is saying we're gonna scan your iris, and that will be the basis of like this new coin, and like Jason will seem to think that it could potentially challenge like Bitcoin and these other things like that. So all I'd say is that there's probably a lot more to this. I just think trying to convince anyone in 2021 to scan their iris, even though we all do it on our phones and we give our thumbprint away to Apple and I give my DNA to 23andMe, right? But like to do this just in a cryptocurrency, it's quite a big step. But I don't know. What about you?
I did read it briefly. I'll add two comments. The funny one was so a big criticism about him is that his startup was just a total failure. So actually the Wall Street Journal called it a middling social network. I can't remember what the name of it was. It's irrelevant. But he basically, critics of Sam Altman is like, this guy just kept failing up, right? And like his startup was basically not great, but he was tight with Paul Graham, and Paul Graham ran and founded Y Combinator. So just put him at the top of it. And but TLDR is he wants to implement some type of universal basic income with this identification and Worldcoin that he's creating. And actually, there is a precedent, right, for a biological identification tag and basically UBI, which is, or some type form of a government giving money or an institution giving money. It's in India. I mean, what's the name of the program? It's like countrywide, right? Everybody has the bio.
Pakistani, bro.
Yeah, biometric, whatever. So people know what they're talking about, right? Bio identifiers are with the government of India, and they're supposed to get kind of that if you're on government support, you just get money based on this kind of database they have. And I think that this idea is along that route. And I'm just going to go back to your point, scanning an iris with a guy like Sam Altman, who has this kind of like Peter Thielish type of reputation, is like, I don't know who's going to want to be doing scanning the eyeballs.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say is I definitely agree with you, and I'm probably on that side. At the same time, if you told me 10 years ago we'd stay in strangers' houses, get in their cars like Uber and Airbnb, or 23andMe, like I paid to give my DNA away, basically, probably in some government database by this point. The
sister-in-law of the ex-wife of Sergey Brin. So
I know. No, I think wasn't his ex-wife?
No, Sergey Brin's ex-wife. Yeah.
Yeah. I got some stories on that as well, but I don't know if we'll get time to.
CEO of Google. Or the CEO of YouTube.
Definitely interesting. I think it's an interesting idea, but let's see. I think we can probably move on from that one. All right, we got 20, 30 minutes left. We had some stuff to talk about on I'm just going to do in 30 seconds. Jack Mallers, the guy who worked on the stuff with El Salvador, he's launched this thing or announced this thing called Bitcoin Tab, where essentially you'll be able to buy Bitcoin with zero fees. Coinbase and Gemini, etc., take about 3%. These guys will be doing it somehow for free, which is pretty... Volcanoes, yeah. And then the last thing I think it's worth mentioning is Coinbase announced a 4% savings account. And the only reason that sounds kind of boring, but the reason that's interesting is it's kind of an off-ramp or a tiny bit of dipping your toes into what the crazy world of DeFi and earning yield on your coins. And I think this is actually quite a big deal, because if you can convince hundreds of millions of people that instead of just holding dollars in your bank account, you can hold it in Coinbase and just earn 4%. I think most people would do that if they feel like it's safe. So
is that Bitcoin, or they're doing that for stable coins?
It's for USDC specifically, for stable coins. Yeah, so
there'll be any banking instrument in the world essentially.
Basically, yeah. And I think the interesting thing here is it's not just your US dollars. Like there are other players like Nexo in the UK or in Europe where you can deposit GBP or like pounds or dollars and earn, I think it's like 8 to 10% even, or 6 to 10% with bonuses. So like there are better deals out there, right? Like not investment advice, but there's all sorts of risk levels. Actually, the Bankless guys, I just read an email just before this. They did a report recently on the yield you can earn from all these different places. And it goes from 3% to 30%. And it depends on how crazy you want to get, right? But like for most people, if you've got $10,000 sitting in your Chase account and you can earn 4% on that in a Coinbase account if it was secured or whatever, I think that's a great step for the space. So let's move on from that and let's get on to some of Trunk's stuff. We got a fun fact fan. Right. Let's do it, man. Let's give the full background.
All right. So the background of this is that I've mentioned this in a previous podcast, but my parents look at Twitter. They only see my Twitter feed. Like that's their entire. They believe that Twitter is my Twitter feed. It's the one. Like you know how we talked about how many daily active users there are, 300 million. They're like, wow, this program's amazing. It has one daily active user. So whatever's on there, they see. They've been like, yo, where's the Viet content at? Where's the Vietnamese content? So I'm like, you know what? All right, I've heard enough. I'm going to drop a story. And I mean, it just so happened to be, it's an amazing business story, right? The founder of Sriracha hot sauce. It gets controversial because Sriracha is actually a generic name. It's like saying the founder of ketchup, right? Heinz is really the name. So the equivalent of Heinz here is Huy Fong. So I'll just talk through his story quickly and we can start doing the jokes. He's a Vietnamese refugee to America. Was formerly a general in the South Vietnamese army, so he's against the communists. So in 1978, the Vietnamese communists got rid of a lot of the Chinese Vietnamese that were in the country. So he's Chinese Vietnamese. There's tons of them because Vietnam borders China, long history. And China and Vietnam actually had the last land war that China's ever had is in 1979. So there's a lot of beef between the two countries. Yeah, there we go. So you can scroll down and go to the next one. We'll just talk super quickly. But Sriracha was invented in the 1930s. There's only 6 ingredients. It's a chili pepper, distilled vinegar, garlic, sugar, and salt. It's delicious. I'm sure you've all had it. So this was invented in the 1930s. It's kind of spread around the world. He made his own version in Vietnam. When he moved to America, and he came over on a boat, actually, a Taiwanese boat called the Huy Fong, that gave the name for his company, the Huy Fong Food Inc. So he arrived in America. He actually arrived in Boston, but over a phone call with his brother, he found out that there was no Sriracha in Los Angeles. So, and they sold jalapeno peppers in California. That's where they farmed them. He's like, I'm coming to California. So he goes to California, and this dude literally starts making Sriracha, bringing the flavors of Southeast Asia to California, because there's a lot of Asians obviously in California, and starts selling it from his trunk. I mean, you guys are hustlers. You love this guy's story. He's filling this sauce into like recycled baby jars. And Jack, you'll know this from all the charts you made. First month, he made $2,300. How does that feel for a startup? What are your thoughts?
Incredible.
Well, what year is this?
1980.
He's probably doing all right, isn't he?
Yeah,
I mean,
probably like,
even in 2021, man, you got to say respect. He's a
$2,000 a month,
refugee.
yeah.
Well, Jack,
Hustling out
like
the
you
trunk.
said, man, make $1 with hot sauce. That's paraphrasing Jack Butcher right
Mate,
there.
how many people, if you can find one person that likes hot sauce, this is going back to our Alex Cohen. You can find one customer, you got $1 million business.
If you find
That's
one
it.
customer, so amazing. The logo is so amazing. It's a rooster. That's the year he was born, 1945, the year of the rooster. It has 5 languages on the squeeze bottle. It's outrageous. It's like you see it has Vietnamese, Taiwanese, Mandarin,
So
English, and Spanish on the back. He's just like, you know what? I'm going to make it universal.
So iconic, this bottle.
Yeah, it's
isn't
so
it?
iconic,
Incredible.
right? The funny thing about it is it's a Taiwanese sauce made by a Chinese Vietnamese immigrant that was shuttled over to America on a Chinese Vietnamese immigrant on a Taiwanese boat in America using American peppers, right? And what's funny is that's the backstory, and there's a lot of cultural backlash against him because they're like, you appropriated Thai sauce. I'm like, bro, this is not the guy you try to cancel.
Yeah,
right?
he's not the guy, man. He's been doing some good work for the community.
Just to keep going bigger and bigger, the business. It's clearly a hit. The sauce is so fire, right? And they now have a factory in Irwindale, California. But the amazing thing is to build from the 2,300 a month in 1980 to today, they're doing about 150 million plus. And they have a 65,000 square foot factory in Irwindale, California. It happened with no sales team. They've kept the exact same distributors since the 1980s. He hasn't changed the wholesale price. It's exactly the same.
That's mental.
Dude, because
Someone
his
should
whole
tell him
motto,
about inflation, man.
I know.
Yeah, that's true.
No, his motto is a rich man's sauce at a poor man's price, like from the beginning.
Respect.
And no ads. So Alexis Ohanian actually retweeted my thread, co-founder Redditor. He's like, he had a story. He's like, we approached Hui Fong to do ads, and they're like, we don't need ads.
Don't believe in ads.
Yeah. It's like, thank you. We appreciate that you came to us, but we don't believe in advertising. So, a really cool product. It's just an amazing product. And
goes on anything, really, does it? It's like you can put it on eggs, you can put it on chicken tikka masala, or give a little spice. Like,
so his secret sauce, the secret sauce for him was the freshness of the ingredients, right? So California has jalapeno peppers, and people don't know this. This is a fun fact for me. You might know this, but a green jalapeno pepper and a red jalapeno pepper, they're the same thing. Green is just not ripe. Red is the ripe. So he wants his sauce to be red. So there's a small window where it's going from green to red. And once it's ripe, you need to harvest that shit, right? So he gets it to red, which is where the color comes from. And some years they'll make an entire year supply of Sriracha in 10 weeks, just because that's when the harvest is. And they had one farm that they worked for 28 years, I think called Underwood Ranches. That relationship broke apart. So Underwood actually sells its own Sriracha now. It ain't the same, brother.
Wow.
It ain't the same. So I'll tap it off with a couple things. The factories run 16 hours a day. They do 100 million pounds of chili a year. When they moved to Irwindale, California, the city actually sued them, saying that the peppers were causing residents to have teary eyes and cry. When I posted that, people were actually replying. It's like, that's actually not what happened. It's like, it was total California NIMBY, like not in my backyard bullshit. It's like, but what happened was Sriracha just started telling people they're shutting down. All these other neighboring municipalities were like, you know what, we'll take you. so Irwindale's like just cracked, right?
It's that old school Elon Musk move, man. It's
exactly, right?
The tweet.
So then the last two things I'll add is Sriracha, he never trademarked it because it's too generic of a term, actually. This is why you'll see like Heinz has its own Sriracha, Tabasco has its own Sriracha. But when they asked him about competitor, he's like, I don't care. Like, I can't fill that demand. Like, let them all come. It doesn't matter to me.
There is no second.
There is no second.
Exactly.
And then when people like Taco Bell or Doritos like put Sriracha on their products, he's like, I don't give a shit. It's free advertising, right? I just love this guy's like mentality. He's like, I make the dopest shit. Like, I don't care. Like, come at me, bro. And then the last thing we ran was the numbers. So Chihuahua hot sauce sold for 800 million last November. This is the Mexican hot sauce brand. And they did that in 92 millions of sales. So that's 9 times revenue. You throw that on Hui Fong, it's $1 billion business, baby. He owns 100% of it, 100%. Wow. And he says he'll never sell. I mean, his kids might, but 8 of his family members work at the company. That's going to his kids. And yeah, dude, he goes, my American dream was never to become a billionaire. We started this because I wanted fresh chili sauce. Just what a legend. So there it is, boys. I
love it, man. And let's finish off with this, man, because hopefully your parents are watching this. Can you guys see my screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to read this out for people who are only listening? This is a text from your sister, right?
Yeah, my sister texts me and she goes, yo, you want to laugh? I'm like, what's up? It's like, mom and dad said you need more Viet content. And I go, wait, what are you talking about? She goes, your Twitter. They say it needs more Viet content. and then sure enough, I delivered. I'll tell you what's funny on this one is this last image. Can you pull up the tweet number 14?
Oh, yeah, 1 second. Let me pull it up.
Pull up, Jamie.
Yeah, pull it up, Jamie. Tweet number 14 is...
Pull it up, Jamie. I take offense to that. Let's go share. Okay, this one, yeah?
Yeah, tweet number 14 is he has a shirt that says, I put Sriracha on my Sriracha.
Oh, that's so good.
Well, actually, click on the quote retweets there.
Yeah, I saw this. Was this the Shopify dude?
Yeah, scroll down. You might be familiar with his name. It's Toby Lutke.
Like a boss. Wait, let's see this. So again, people who are just listening, we're
Toby
looking for a treat.
CEO of Shopify. He retweets this and he goes,
oh, it's not showing this.
No, you went past it. It was there.
Yeah, hilarious. He goes, which Shopify shop is selling this t-shirt?
That's brilliant. I don't see it right now. Anyway, but you get the point. I did see that. Anyway, that's a great breakdown, man. What a fucking great story. Trunk's parents. Sorry. One effing great story for...
yeah. Well, you guys can swear, man. I'm not allowed to swear.
You swore a few times, mate. So
I got one in the tip jar. The only thing I'd add on that story is somebody asked, can you drink Sriracha? So according to the internet, you can drink Sriracha. However, Refinery 29 says 2 squirts, 2 tablespoons of Sriracha, that's 17% of the daily recommended sodium.
Nice.
So if you're drinking the Sriracha, I mean, you're probably going to have some blood pressure problems.
We used to do Tabasco shots at uni. I don't know if this is just in my uni, but it was... I would hit those nicely. I don't think I could do it with Sriracha, but Tabasco, I can do that pretty easily. It's quite delicious, actually. But obviously, nothing like Sriracha. There's also quite a key question is like, is it the best hot sauce, though? Let's be honest.
I'll be honest. I mean, it is. I actually prefer their. They have 3 products. I think 3. The other one is more of a chili type of paste. That one bangs. Yeah, I'm looking at, but Bilal is just like, he's nodding, man. When Bilal hears chili and garlic, he's just like,
Well, when you said like the paste, I'm like, oh, you're a real G. You know what you're doing.
Here's the thing. I don't mess around. Like, I'm not I love sauce, but like paste is what gets me excited. You give me that shrimp paste and I'm going to do some damage with it, man.
I was going to share. I mean, anyway, yeah, this could be a whole hour discussion on the best hot sauce.
Yeah, but you know what? Let's add that. Let's jump off that because I know that we're running tight here, which is all my fault, anyways. But
I was going to say because I'm brown, so like we have everything's hot sauce, right? Because it's all of our food is hot sauce, basically.
Well, let's ask Butcher. What's your favorite hot sauce? You're in Tennessee, brother.
Mate, Sriracha's. I've got a place in my heart for Sriracha. What did you call it? You call it Chihuahua. I think it's called Cholula, isn't it?
It's Cholula,
you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
That's pretty legit too.
I like that. Yeah,
that's the job.
But yeah, boys, my top end is probably a bit lower than yours, so that's about as far as I take it.
Like
Jack, the key question is when you have Nando's, what level do you eat?
You go peri-peri?
Medium, solid. All right. That's all right. You can hang with the big boys. All right.
As long as you're not hitting the lemon and what is it? Lemon
and herb. Yeah. Well, I think that's a cheat. You do the lemon and herb and then you throw the extra hot on the side and then you just mix it up.
I've been known to dabble with the hot, but I wouldn't go hot or extra hot.
You feel it the next day.
Bro, if you're going to Nando's and ordering the lemon and herb, man, just go home.
Yeah.
Just go boil some chicken breast.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if you guys, for any brown listeners.
No doubt.
You guys know this? This is the most legit. Achar. Do you guys know what it is?
I've heard
this is not really hot sauce, but it's, I mean, this is like the OG, like, I would wake up on the weekend. My mum would make aloo paratha, which is like this, like it's like a roti, but like with butter in it. And then it's got aloo, which is potato. And you hit this mango jar on the side, and it's you can't buy that, man. Like you can't buy that in a restaurant.
Stuff,
so
mate.
The best. All right, boys, we're gonna have to wrap up soon. But anything else? Were there any other stupid questions people asked in that thread?
Yeah, I won't have time to dig into them, man. This I think again, this is anybody that's upset about we're cutting this short because I again forgot it was Canada Day. And
no, you gotta go, man. We hit the hour. So yeah, this has been a great way to wrap it up.
In comments next week. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, boys. Well, thanks for joining us again. And if you're liking this, let us know on Twitter, as always. And just do us a favor, because there's a lot of you who are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, but don't press subscribe. So just even if you're not listening to every episode, just hit subscribe. It helps us out. That's your way you can help us. And if
it drives the algo, man.
It helps the algo. And if you're on YouTube, for all 12 of you on there, could you do us a favor and smash the like button and press subscribe as well? That will help us out. And we'll see you again next week for another episode.
Amazing. That's perfect, guys.